We all know what dragons are. Fire-breathing lizards who have penetrated the collective consciousness of the world. Whether it be through films or books, dragons come in different forms, from the classic dragons of Europe to those found in Asia, but also dragon-adjacent creatures such as the moho of Hawaiian mythology and the rainbow serpent found in Aboriginal mythology. Alongside this, you also have creatures like the horned serpent of Native American mythology. But what all of these have in common is that they're all myths, figments of the imagination. But in a collection of small islands in Indonesia, there is a lizard which could fit the description of a dragon, large in size, with 4 legs and a long tail. And today, we're going to track this extraordinary animal, the Komodo dragon, from birth to death. Starting right at the beginning. Life for a Komodo dragon begins like most reptiles, when the mother lays an egg. Typically, a Komodo dragon will lay around 24 eggs on average. However, they can lay up to 38 eggs, and females will only lay their eggs once a year. So will guard the nest in which she lays them in, ensuring that these eggs are not eaten by predators. Usually, they will use the nests of abandoned birds found in the Komodo National Park. The reason for this is probably to save energy, but they're not above digging their own where necessary. The eggs need to be buried 2 meters below ground in order for them to develop properly and not be subject to the hot sun of the tropics. Usually, female Komodo dragons will lay their eggs sometime between September and August, guard them until December, at which point she will leave the nest. This is likely due to the wet season starting around about this time, so the chances of the eggs being discovered has decreased. But after the mother abandons them, this begins the Komodo dragon's life as a solitary animal, and these eggs will be left alone to develop the next couple of months, until around about the end of April or May, which also coincides with the end of the wet season, at which point the hatchlings will break out of their eggs and begin to tunnel to the surface, being just 40 centimeters long and weighing 100 grams. Thanks to the wet season, the islands in which the Komodo dragons are native to will be dense in foliage, giving young Komodo dragons lots of ground cover, and also lots of insects typically hatch during this period, which will be the main source of food for young Komodo dragons. One of the things you may have noticed about these young dragons is that compared to when they're adults, they're very brightly coloured. This likely serves as a form of camouflage, ensuring less noticeable to predators. Young Komodo dragons will spend the first couple of months in the tree canopy, kind of like a gecko, even though they will eat gecko. The reason for this is a simple one, as their biggest predator is older Komodo dragons, to whom young Komodo dragons make up 10% of their diet. So for these hatchlings, it's better to remain out of sight and out of mind, at least until they grow older. They will also stay in the general area of their hatching site, and they will slowly begin to transition from this treetop lifestyle at the age of around 1, when their diet will expand to include more meat, such as eggs and chickens. However, they will return to the trees if they feel that they are threatened. At the age of 2, they will fully transition into ground living, and this reflects their expanded appetite. However, there is a positive to this large appetite, as the benefit of this is that the islands in which they live on have a fairly low rat population, and it's likely the Komodo dragons will eat these excess rats. During this period, the search for food will consume most of the Komodo dragon's day, often spending it alone. However, they will sometimes run into contact with other dragons, and they will usually stay away, or they'll be chased off if they're significantly older. What you might have noticed is that the bright colour of the hatchlings have begun to fade. This is because they are now better able to defend themselves, and thus do not need to rely as heavily on their camouflage. They will stay in this phase for around 5 years, as they continue to bulk up and mature, until they can reach adulthood. And during this period, males will grow more rapidly than females, a pattern which will continue for the rest of their lives. When Komodo dragons reach adulthood is contested. In females, it's thought they reach sexual maturity at the age of around 10 to 8 years old, and will weigh somewhere between 18 to 20 kilograms. But the only reason we think this is because they'll start digging nests at this age. On the other hand, male sexual maturity is much harder to determine. Some think they will reach adulthood at the same time as females, whilst others argue that it could happen later. Another theory is that whilst they're ready to mate at the same age as females, they cannot compete with the older and larger males, and thus they will have to wait a few years. And whilst females typically stop their growth around this time, coming in at 70 kilograms and 6 feet long, because size determines access to females, males continue to grow for the following decades, with some individuals coming in at 10 feet long and 140 kilograms. To reach these sizes, they'll eat whatever they can get their hands on, from young Komodo dragons all the way up to water buffalo. Typically, they'll bring these larger prey items down using ambush tactics, waiting for the prey to approach and biting them. And usually, it's just a matter of waiting, because Komodo dragons are thought to have extremely potent venom in their mouth, which will enter the bloodstream. Although, in recent years, there have been arguments that there is actually no venom in the Komodo dragon's bite, and this argument is partly supported by the fact that when bitten, water buffalo will run into water holes which have stagnant water with an open wound, giving the impression of venom. Needless to say, it doesn't end well if you're bitten by a Komodo dragon, and you probably better seek medical attention relatively quickly, because a bite from a Komodo dragon can kill a human in a matter of days. Although, depending on the circumstances, the usual tactic is to simply just kill the prey, and they can do this in typically less than half an hour by using their jaws. Once dead, the Komodo dragon will eat as much as it can, and will often fight off other dragons to defend the kill, which comes with the risk of great personal injury, as Komodo dragons will lean up on their hind legs and bite each other. Although, the greater access to meat, and thus the greater size, does have its benefits, typically when it comes to lifespan, as it's thought that males live longer than females, with some saying that males can live up until their 60s, whereas females will usually live up until they're around 30. Although, this is a behaviour that's only seen in the wild, and in captivity, typically, both will live until they're around 30. One of the most mysterious things about Komodo dragons is their mating rituals, as whilst we know the size matters, the actual detail is relatively unknown. It's thought that the breeding season occurs between June or August, and it's thought the males will actively seek out females in season, using their tongues to sense the pheromones that they leave in the air. And there's also evidence that after the deal is done, the male will guard the female for a time, likely to ensure that he is the only father of the eggs she will lay. Aside from this, males will have literally nothing to do with their offspring, and might actually end up killing them. It's thought the males can mate every year. However, this is not the case of females, because of the energy consumption breeding takes. As well as females are guarding her eggs, she will lose around 20% of her weight. Significant energy drain. Komodo dragons have been living with people since humans arrived in Indonesia, and it's fairly chill, with local residents respecting the dragons and some people being able to tame them. Nonetheless, they're still endangered. This likely comes from their small population of around 3,500 on the 5 islands that make up the Komodo National Park. There are also some issues of habitat loss and hunting for their skins, as well as medicinal purposes, although these aren't really prevalent issues on these islands, and the small population probably just reflects the small land area found on many of the Komodo dragon's native islands, as these are the only places the Komodo dragon is known to live. And actually, to get to the 5 islands, they may have swam between them, which is something they're able to do, as well as reaching top speeds of 13 miles per hour. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and click the bell icon to never miss an upload. Also, check out this video on the spotted hyena, and I'll see you in the next one.